Okay, what's up, guys? I was just on Twitter, or X, and I see that Ramondre is trending. As you guys know, the reason he's trending is because this happened. So we got Ezekiel Elliott, and this is awesome. I'll tell you why. Right now, Patriots fans, for the most part, or at least the most vocal, are not thinking clearly at all, and they don't know why they're not thinking clearly. Okay, they're just totally irrational. So the reason everybody wanted that DeAndre Hopkins or whatever, the receiver, a couple weeks ago, they were desperate for him. The reason they wanted him was mostly because they love Mac Jones so much. Okay, that's why. The irrationality in Patriots fans, it's Mac Jones. Okay, Mac Jones has everybody thinking totally irrational. Not everybody, just the Mac stans, okay? And every single Mac stan is somebody who thought that Cam Newton was the better fit as our starter in 2021, okay? And that Mac Jones wasn't ready, and that if they started him, it could cripple his confidence for his entire career. And that we needed Cam Newton's leadership. So that was totally irrational and illogical, projecting their own fragility onto the rookie Mac Jones, following behind Cam Newton, the bigger personality with the bigger ego. That felt safer than using your damn common sense. And so once Mac Jones went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady in week 3 or 4, they all turned into the biggest Mac fans of all. So I was a huge Mac fan, pushing for him to start over Cam the whole time. But this last season, guys, helped open my eyes. The fact is that all of us in Mac Jones' rookie season, we did not get the full picture. We knew that he had temper issues. They called him McEnroe back at Alabama, right? We knew he had this hot temper. We knew that when his emotions got hot, that his play on the field suffered. If he made a bad play, we heard all these things, but the fact is that we never really saw it in his rookie season. And that's because we had a top 5 offensive line. And it's because Mac Jones was stage managed by Josh McDaniels to a large extent. Okay, so all of us were irrational, including myself, by thinking that Mac being ready to start game 1 meant that somehow he had this upside that was even better. Significant upside, the kind that makes you want to re-sign a guy when his contract is up, even if it costs $30 or $40 or $50 million. Right? The reason you don't fall irrationally in love with a player, but even from day one, I always kept the attitude that find another Mac Jones in 4 years. Why would you pay $40-50 million for a quarterback unless he's, like top 3 in the league or something like that? So everybody who's kissing Mac Jones' ass right now and who wanted to sign DeAndre Hopkins just because it would theoretically make Mac Jones look better, and these same people being totally irrational that they've seen all they ever need to see in Bailey Zappe. In Bailey Zappe's 2 starts that he's 2-0, they saw everything they ever need to see from him, so they never ever want to give him a chance. That's not rational thinking, guys. That's not even being a Patriots fan. That's just being completely gay for Mac Jones. So let me cut to the chase of this Ezekiel Elliott, because that's probably the title of the video. The reason we needed a running back more than a wide receiver is because we already know, and we knew even before this first preseason game, that the offensive line was going to be trash. And every single Mac Jones fan was just crossing their fingers and wishing and hoping that the offensive line wouldn't be trashed this year, just so they could see Mac Jones play as well or better as his ultimately mediocre rookie season. When you take away all the rose-tinted glasses and the honeymoon and the falling in love and, it was a mediocre quarterback season. Nobody else falls in love with a quarterback with that kind of performance unless they're a rookie. So, the reason we needed a running back much more than a wide receiver, and the reason this Ezekiel Elliott signing is so amazing, is because we know that the offensive line is going to be trash. So Mac Jones or Bailey Zappe, they weren't even going to have time to throw to DeAndre Hopkins because they were going to be under pressure constantly. So just think rationally, right? Instead of being a Mac fan, be a Pats fan. Rationally. You got a bad offensive line that you know is going to be bad. How do you have an even remotely good offense when you have a terrible offensive line? Well, it now looks like we might have something in that rookie, Pop Douglas, which is awesome. One player, our top 4 slot receivers were unavailable to Bailey Zappe in the first preseason game. Okay, along with 6 of the top 7 offensive linemen, and all of these Mac homosexuals saying, "Oh, that just proves that Bailey Zappe is trash. He only went 10 for 12 or whatever it was. He only went 10 for 12 with 80 yards, with no offensive line, under constant pressure, without any of his top 4 slot receivers. Mike Gesicki is basically a slot receiver, Kendrick Bourne, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Pop Douglas. Okay? So when a quarterback is under constant pressure, of course you need that slot receiver, right? That's how Brady played behind bad offensive lines. So the only way to have a even decent offense when you have a terrible offensive line like that is, yes, you can get slot receiver play, and it looks like we're going to have a good one in Pop Douglas. The rest of them, utterly mediocre at best. But the other way you do that is just how we won last year, and just how we won in the second half of 2 years ago, once Bill Belichick finally got it through his thick head that Ramondre Stevenson was better than Damian Harris. Remember, guys, Bill Belichick benched Ramondre Stevenson, healthy scratch, to play J.J. Taylor 2 years ago. So we already know how you win with a terrible offensive line. We did what we did last year. It was all because of Ramondre. And it's easier to, and the defense, of course. And it's easier to block for the run than the pass. Now, in the first preseason game, we had a lot of players. Everyone was out of position, right? It was like Riley Reif Connor McDermott starting at left tackle when he had been on the right side, like all of camp. So a lot of these guys were set up to fail. And then you had the rookie City So playing right tackle when he's played guard his entire career. I think now they've got Riley Reif playing right guard in practice. Anyway, obviously that's all not going to work. But we do have the personnel to be a really good run blocking team. Whether City So stays at right tackle, which apparently now he's maybe playing with the starters, or you swing Mike Onwenu out there and you put City So at right guard. And then I don't think Bill Belichick realizes this yet, but Cole Strange, the only reason he's slotted in as our starting left guard is because he was a first-round pick. And he was only selected because Bill Belichick and Mike Patricia were going to run this zone running game that they had to abandon within 2 or 3 games, right? So, what's his name? Mafi? Mafi, the UCLA guard who weighs about 330 pounds. He's the guy who should be playing. He's a better left guard than Cole Strange is, and they're probably going to figure this out eventually. Just like it took that first preseason game for the Patriots to realize that they really are desperate for a running back. Okay? Remember, it took a few games to, 2 years ago, to figure out that Mike Onwenu at left guard wasn't cutting it. And as soon as they put Ted Karras in there, it turned into a top 5, maybe even top 3 the rest of the way, offensive line. So we have an awesome defense, just like last year and 2 years ago. But regardless of which quarterback it is, and it needs to be Zappe, and I'll tell you why, Mac Jones, with that hot-headed temper and the reputation he had coming in, it was already there. But we didn't see it his rookie year because he had a top 5 line and he was stage managed very carefully by Josh McDaniels. But we saw it last year. Okay, last year the offensive line was bad, and that was the first time Mac Jones had ever faced that kind of adversity, guys. He didn't have that adversity at Alabama with the best offensive line, and virtually his entire starting line probably is making millions of dollars in the NFL right now. He didn't have that kind of adversity in his rookie year when we had a top 5 offensive line. So remember with Sam Darnold on the Jets, like a number 1 or number 2 pick, and after so many sacks, he admitted he started seeing ghosts. Okay, you hit a guy so many times, that's the kind of adversity. And I'll be the first to admit that I would be seeing ghosts as well. And Mac Jones was clearly seeing ghosts last year. Okay, he had the horrific high ankle sprain, screaming and crying down to the locker room, right? And when he came back, he was seeing ghosts the rest of the year. And his accuracy that was elite as a rookie went out the window. He was throwing wild balls. The accuracy wasn't there. That's not a loss of coordination, guys. It's like if Steph Curry started shooting bricks all the time. Would you think that he just lost that coordination, or would you realize there's something mental going on with him? You'd say, obviously, that's mental, okay? So Mac Jones, major mental stuff going on, and it wasn't just, we make all these excuses about Patricia and Judge, right? Ignoring the fact that Mac Jones has a terrible sense of being able to notice when there's pressure around him. And then being able to escape that pressure. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have either of those two things. So when you can't even sense the pressure, and you're a highly emotional person like Mac Jones is, and I am too, it's a recipe for seeing ghosts. It's a recipe for wild inaccuracy. Okay, it's a recipe for panic, bad decisions, and we even saw this weirdness crop up with Mac Jones taking all these cheap shots. Right, sliding and kicking the guy in the groin, tripping the guy in the tackle when he wasn't even in the play. And then, that other guy called Mac a dirty player and said he's basically going to be hunting for Mac Jones this year. And you can be sure that a lot of other guys are going to be hunting for Mac Jones this year, just knowing that he's made 3 or 4 dirty plays already as the snot-nosed rich kid. So that's just one more reason why Mac Jones is going to be seeing crazy ghosts this year. And when you can't sense, like I said, when it's easier when you can actually, some quarterbacks just have a better sense, okay? Maybe their hearing is a little better. Maybe they can go through their progressions without it taking all of their mental energy, so they can reserve some of their consciousness for, their peripheral vision. Maybe it's having that internal clock that's a little better so they know to step up in the pocket if their first two reads aren't there. And then it's mostly, guys, just that emotional tranquility. And that's a biological thing. Okay, Mac Jones is not emotionally tranquil. And that's not something you can train for in the off season. Just like you can't train for, you can't train for real pressure. Like all the fake pressure in training camp where they're not allowed to hit him, it doesn't account for anything because it's not real pressure. And it's not that real visceral fear of getting smacked to the ground from behind when you had no idea the guy was there and being carried down to the locker room screaming and crying in front of 20 million people. So the wishing and the hoping about Mac, like, you don't even know what he's bad at. You can't even acknowledge, you're just not being rational at all. Like, you think him throwing like 50,000 passes over the off season, like that's not gonna solve the problem, guys. Bill O'Brien in there, that's not gonna solve the problem. The only way to have solved the problem was to draft a offensive tackle in the first round, and then draft the other. Yeah, basically would have been to draft an offensive tackle in the first round, move Trent Brown over to right tackle, and then still draft those three other interior linemen in those other rounds. And then to have the wisdom to bench Cole Strange for someone bigger and stronger who's not going to get rocked back on a consistent basis. And to use Cole Strange as an extra blocker, the way that Onwenu was used as an extra blocker in 2021. So for some reason, I was able to snap out of the Mac Stanhood when he just kept putting together back-to-back panicky, whiny, cry, low accuracy games. And obviously it really helped that Bailey Zappe played as outstanding as he did. And the fact is, guys, Bailey Zappe has probably a lot more game snaps, real game snaps, than Mac Jones has over the last 6 years. So he's got more game snaps under real pressure with more real fear of being in severe physical pain from hits from behind. He played behind a worse offensive line, so he had to hone his pocket presence, his awareness, his peripheral vision, his ears, and he had to practice staying emotionally tranquil. And it's not even like Mac Jones showed signs of developing any kind of emotional tranquility or evasiveness or awareness in the pocket. It was pure trash from the first week to the last week, and there was no improvement in his temperament, in his awareness, in his elusiveness. He was never stepping up in the pocket. He was never, sharp cuts. Once he sees that a guy's about to, he just went down. He didn't even bother moving out of the way. He just went straight down. And so I can't blame you for being a Mac stan and being a Zappe skeptic, because every single Patriots beat reporter is leading the charge. They're even leading the charge. Like, it was so disappointing to see what's his face, Phil Perry, after the week 1 game, where Cunningham had a great junk time in the fourth quarter, and Phil Perry's like, maybe they start dangling Bailey Zappe in trade talks, and then we move Malik Cunningham into the backup quarterback role. And part of that line of thinking, guys, part of the reason they would ignore that Bailey Zappe had an absolutely terrible offensive line in that game and trying to pretend that he had a really bad game when he was like 10 for 12 or whatever it was with no turnovers, making zero mistakes in the worst possible circumstances. I forget what I was saying, but you get the idea. Like, they have it out for Bailey Zappe because they're max stance. Everybody has their brain. There's nobody thinking clearly. No Patriots reporter right now is using their brain at all. And I'm not even saying you go out and you pay Bailey Zappe $40 million a year and you buy his jersey in 3 different colors at a total cost of $200 and you go homosexual for Bailey Zappe. I'm saying have the best chance of winning this year and next year and the next year. It's looking more and more and more like Bailey Zappe is the guy. And remember, the people telling you that Bailey Zappe and Mac is a worse talent than Mac Jones, they're not even giving you real reasons. Like, they'll say arm strength, but they can't, like, it's so close that they can't even say that really convincingly and with a straight face. And there's so many little things that are so important that Bailey Zappe does better. If you could have a cool, calm, and collected quarterback versus a hothead who lets his emotions control him, obviously you'd rather have the cool, calm, and the even keel guy. Do you want the guy who panics under pressure or the guy who stays calm? And obviously you take the guy who stays calm, right? Do you want the guy who shows an ability to juke, to take a sharp, strong first step to escape a sack and to keep the play going and to get his eyes back downfield and see if anything else is going on? Or do you want the guy who can't juke and just falls down? And do you want the guy who panic and whose accuracy starts going wild anytime he starts getting flustered? Anytime he feels like he's under pressure? Do you want a guy who loses his accuracy because of his emotions? Do you want a guy who can throw with anticipation? Do you want a guy who can go through his progressions quickly and without bias for one receiver or another? Mac Jones hasn't shown that ability. Mac Jones plays favorites, locks in on a guy, forces passes, forces dumb interceptions. And the fact is that in his 2 seasons, he's never been clutch in the red zone. He had some nice early in his rookie season touchdown passes to Hunter Henry, kind of hinting at some kind of ability to be clutch in the future, but especially last year, anytime they were in the end zone, anytime they were in the red zone close to the end zone, Mac Jones just had to put it just too far out of reach, so it just drops off the guy's hands, and it's just an interception over and over and over and over again. Now, if Mac Jones does remain the quarterback for whatever godforsaken reason this year, Ezekiel Elliott will certainly help that, right? And I think after that first preseason game, everyone now knows that, if they didn't know it before. We needed even Ezekiel Elliott more than any big blue chip wide receiver. So this is huge in that regard. Give Ramondre some rest. He's probably better at getting into the end zone from the goal line. And, let Harris and Strong compete for basically one roster spot in all likelihood. So yeah, anyway, guys, that's 2 videos. I wanted to make the Mac Jones one. But if you put aside the emotions, nothing I said was false. If you put aside the emotions and you stop blaming everything on Matt Patricia and Mike Judge, and you stop emotionally trying to pretend that Bailey Zappe is nowhere close to the talent that Mac Jones is. Like, this is the sports town that watched Tom Brady for 20 years And you can't even tell the difference between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappe when it comes to the little things. It's absolutely nuts. So you're all up in your emotions, your homosexual tendencies, especially all of these Patriots reporters. They're not seeing through clear glasses. They've got their beer goggles on, and it's getting really annoying. But in about 6 games from now, 6 regular season games from now, nobody's going to remember the kind of pathetic Mac Jones standing that was going on this entire offseason and last year as well. All right, later.